morning. How are you doing today? So I am out here in my garage right now just because it's such a beautiful day. Whenever I woke up and looked out the window, I could just tell by the way the sun was shining that it was going to feel like an awesome spring day. And the first thing I wanted to do was jump up and run outside. So I'm sitting out in my garage. I told y'all I would get back to you with an update. We will see how long it takes me to kind of get through having the third balloon, finishing my 3 months with the balloon, and now that we're a month after me getting them out for the OBALON. Starting out, you've seen in my most previous video that I've uploaded that I was really nervous about having that third balloon in. I was talking about how I could only eat, a kid's meal, and I would feel very full, and I was nervous about getting the third balloon. So I don't know what was different about having a third balloon. I think that something kind of clicked mentally, maybe, because I didn't actually feel like there was a ton of difference. Now, for a couple days, of course, always, for a couple days after you get the balloons, you will have some stomach tightness, a feeling of extra pressure, and that's just really inflammation and your stomach adjusting to having another balloon in there 24/7. After that, though, it in my opinion really kind of normals out and just feels like it's supposed to and is taking up the space it's supposed to. So when I say that maybe something clicked mentally for me, I say that because I didn't notice that much of a difference in my restriction, is what they call it. Every time I would go to my dietitian, are you feeling restricted? How's your restriction level? I didn't notice a huge change in it. However, I did start noticing that I was eating less without trying. I was eating my portion on a plate without being forced to the point of feeling full and feeling like, oh, I cannot fit any more food in my stomach. I have got to stop eating. Which I think is one of the most beneficial things that the OBALON does for you. And I will get to that a little bit later. So the third balloon went well, and I'm also going to sprinkle in some personal stories in here about where I've been for the last, 4.5 months. So that would have been in October that I got that balloon. Right at the very end to beginning of November, so end of October, beginning of November, I went out of town for a girls' weekend with my mom and my sister and my grandma. Now, I lived with my husband and my father-in-law. Whenever we were together, he was, I think, 22 maybe. I think I was 20. And the lease was coming up on my apartment. He wanted to really be a homeowner, and we tried to decide what would be the best thing. And the opportunity had come up for him to buy his grandmother's house. However, the amount that she wanted per month and the amount that she wanted as a down payment, he could not afford for a house at 24. As many 24-year-olds nowadays cannot do. We were just, we were a little ways into our relationship because obviously buying a house and getting these arrangements take time. So by the time he had the house when he was 24, we had been dating for a little bit longer, but when all of these conversations were happening, we hadn't really been together that long. And so he was kind of throwing out there like, should I buy a house? Should I get an apartment? And he was trying to ask me, should I move into your apartment with you? And, I was young and scared, and the relationship was still kind of new, and so that never went anywhere. So in order to be able to buy that house, he had to buy it with his father. Now, this is his father who is on not that grandmother's side. So basically, that was not his mom. That was his ex-wife's mother. So they ended up buying the house together. The dad funded the down payment, and eventually, when everything was said and done, we all moved in, including me, because we'd been together for years at this point. I don't think we were engaged yet, but I do think we were engaged within the first year. So we lived at this house in, I'll just say, DFW. We lived in this house in DFW for 5 years with his dad. And the first year was okay. The second year was a little less okay. The third year was a little less okay. You get my drift. About a month after getting my third balloon, almost time to do a month follow-up, right at the beginning of November, my husband and his dad get into this huge fight. And I'm not saying like fist fight, but they get into this knockdown, drag out fight, and lots of things are said, basically to the effect of, I cannot wait to be away from you, And there were many years that we felt like, there were many years that we really regretted not just getting an apartment, struggling, and not having like the comforts of a home, and thinking, like, maybe this isn't worth it. It's nice to have some privacy. It's nice to not have to live with a bunch of neighbors around you, and it does give you a sense of security, and it's obviously larger, and it was better for our dogs to have a yard. And so there's a lot of good things about the home that we were searching for that kind of came to fruition, but were kind of dampened by having this other person there that we really didn't get along with. And some of that was like things getting stolen from me, like money, food. I felt like I couldn't have anything nice because it would get damaged, because why would he care about ruining my things? Like, it was just, there was no respect. But it was also like you couldn't talk to him about it because he would get so irrational. And so it almost felt like being, locked up with him for 5 years, and like we were dying to get out. The problem is that we felt stuck in a lot of ways, like there's still a mortgage on the home and things like that. So I'll speed up the story and get back to the balloons. But long story short, I went out of town for a girls' weekend, and in that time, they get into an argument. So when I come home, the next day, miraculously, a nail ends up in my husband's tire, in the front tire. And he's mad, and he's like, I know that, my dad did this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, this sounds a little crazy, I mean, I get that he's mad at you, but do you really think he would put a nail in your tire? And he's like, yeah, I do. Of course, because he's out mad. Yeah, I do. And so we go and we fix it, and somehow, so when we're fixing it, we rotate it, because you don't want to drive with a donut on the front of your car. Tip number 1, life tip, in case you didn't know, you do not want to drive with a donut on the front wheels of your car. It can damage, of course, now I can't even remember what it's called. Anyways, it can damage it. But what we do is we switch the flat wheel with the nail in it to the back tire, and we move the back tire to the front. We go, we get it fixed, come home, we think everything's good. Get up in the morning, that back tire that was perfectly fine that we moved to the front now has a nail in it. So in the exact same spot, looking like it was hammered in, basically. And that is when my husband absolutely, oh, Jesus, the door closed and it scared me. That is when my husband absolutely lost it. And now it was at the point where he felt like if he's going to start doing things like putting nails in my tire, and already on top of breaking our things, throwing things, stealing money and food from me, like, we're done. This has been 5 years of torture. We're done. We're getting out. And so we literally packed everything up. I got up at 7 in the morning. His dad works overnight, so he doesn't come home till like noon or 1 o'clock. I got up at 7 in the morning, got a like 20-foot U-Haul truck, and we literally packed up all of our things, everything. We had stayed up that night before till like 3 in the morning, just throwing things in boxes silently until his dad left for, the third night, third shift, and literally packed everything up. Oh my God, I was exhausted. And yeah, basically we were out within 24 hours, and we moved out to where we are now, which is basically southern DFW. We're kind of out in the country. And where we are now is living with a roommate who inherited her dad's home out here. He passed away about a year ago, and so she was literally a week a week into getting the property. Sorry. A week into getting the property and moving out here herself to start taking care of it, since it takes so long for probate and to, do all the paperwork after someone passes and taking care of their possessions. So this is where we are now. So in the move, literally throwing all of my stuff into boxes, no rhyme or reason, trying to get out within 24 hours. And I will say, we were so close to being gone. His dad pulled up in the driveway about 10 minutes before we left. I'm saying we were so close. And he pulled up, and I was standing in the truck, so I was up high, and I just had a straight on shot of his face when he pulled into the driveway. And I was like, wrap it up. We're done. Whatever's not in the truck, we're leaving. I'm yelling at my now roommate who is helping us, get the dogs on the leash, put them in your car. We're out of here. So in all of those things, basically, I have lost a lot of my filming gear. I'm filming on my phone now. I did purposefully go and get a new Samsung, one of the ones that has the 3 cameras like the iPhones do, just so I can have a better quality camera. So yeah, long story short, that's why I haven't been filming. It was a crazy, crazy move. And then I was just kind of living life, after that. Or I would say I had changed positions. And so I now work in a totally different building for a different office. I work for the government. I'm not going to say where, just because, you have to really just make sure that you keep your public life and your private life separate. And that's probably a good thing for anybody to do when it comes to their work life. So anyways, and I don't mean to say public and private, work life, personal life separate. So yes, I had changed jobs. I was trying to get adjusted to that. In March, I just had my 6 months at that job, if that helps kind of date it. So I had been there, but not for very long. So the third balloon, we'll go back to that. There's something else that was going on with the third balloon that I feel like it's important to mention. It's a little bit TMI, but at the same time, bodies are gross, and you're literally putting balloons in your body, which is definitely something that's not natural to do. Obviously, we can survive it as humans. We can survive a lot of weird things that we do to our bodies. I've had foot surgery. I have nails in my foot. Who puts nails? At what point in medical history did someone say, just put a nail in it, they'll be fine? Anyways, I would say this happened in December, actually. So we moved out here basically the first week of November, and it was actually the first week of December, I remember, because there was our Christmas festival going on. So for some reason that day when I get up, I am having just crazy indigestion, I guess you could say, and I am having to go to the bathroom constantly, and I'm having diarrhea to the point that at one point I looked and there was mucus, and then later on there was still more mucus, and then I saw that there's actually flecks of blood in it. And so this was very alarming. I was like, oh my God, I'm literally bleeding out. Not a lot, guys, not a lot, but something's wrong enough that I call the on-call number at 7 p.m. on a Friday night, and I describe my symptoms to him, and he's basically like, that's not gonna be from the balloons. I don't think it's the balloons. Have you ever seen a GI specialist, a gastroenterologist. I'm like, no, but I've definitely thought about it because in even the years before I did the OBALON, I felt like something with my digestion is off, and whenever I was trying to do different diets, different ones would upset my stomach, and that's where a lot of like my confusion and my how am I even supposed to lose weight or know how to diet or do what I'm supposed to do if I'm having all of these different reactions and it just doesn't seem like anything's going the way that it should. I go see my GI specialist, and not to, like, I don't want to keep anyone in suspense. Long story short, my intestines are fine. They did a lot of cultures to check to see if I maybe had a gluten allergy. They checked to see if I had any polyps, and then they checked to see if I had ulcers. And they were really saying that I was in the age bracket that was coming up in a time that a lot of people have ulcerative colitis, like it starts showing basically in your late 20s. And so that's what I was really worried about for a while. And as you can imagine, I didn't know if it was the balloons, I didn't know if it was me, but there was a lot of stuff like that going on, which is why I just never felt like sitting down and just filming a video and talking about whether or not I could eat less and if I lost any weight. And that also, all of these things going on impacted how much I worked out, plus the weather. Oh my gosh, the weather. When it's rainy and cold, I don't want to work out, And that's one thing that maybe I will give as a recommendation, which I'll speak on a little bit more at the end. But we did a lot of checking around. I did a colonoscopy at 27, that's young. You don't really have to get one until you're getting into your 40s, which it really wasn't that bad. And if you want to know more about what a colonoscopy prep is like and what a colonoscopy prep, what the feeling of it is like and stuff, then just let me know and I can tell you, because I didn't think it was that bad. Anyways, everything came back fine. I don't have ulcers. And the doctor was basically like, he thinks, oh, well, maybe it's the balloons, whereas the bariatric doctor's like, it's not the balloons. He's like, just get some fiber. It might be a little bit of IBS. It might have been activated by the balloons. And I will say, since I've gotten them out, it hasn't really happened to a small degree. I've had a little bit of diarrhea, and I noticed that it was but whenever I was having my period. And I've even mentioned this to my dietitian, and I have noticed, every time I get my period, my BMs change, how my digestion is functioning changes, which is very common. And then I thought about it, and whenever I had this terrible bout with blood and mucus and stuff, that was during my period too. So I think it might have been kind of a combination of everything. I think maybe a little bit of the balloons, and then maybe a little bit of like IBS maybe flares up when I'm on my period, and it was just kind of like the perfect storm, and I had a really bad reaction that day. So that's getting us through December. So crazy moving out experience. Started dealing with having to go to the GI doctor, doing samples and testing, and then finally getting a colonoscopy to find out that everything was fine. Okay, pause the story there. I will upload a part 2. This is already getting to be a lengthy video. So the next one I'm going to talk about how much I've lost, what it was like to get them out, how I'm doing now, and then, what I recommend. Would I recommend this to someone? So stay tuned for the next video. I'm sorry that it's taking me so long to get you guys up to date, that I have to make 2 videos out of it. But I'm really hoping to do better and kind of have a more fun channel and integrate some different kinds of videos after this. But I definitely want to do what I said I was going to do, and kind of work y'all all the way from the beginning to the end of having the OBALON, in case you are interested and want to know more about it.